The often unpredictable backdrop of war movies provides the perfect setting for that most classic of movie tropes, the plot twist. Dozens of offerings in the war movie genre have managed to do the unthinkable by producing a curveball that lands with a seismic impact, despite the unforeseeable and erratic nature of their wider environment. It's a testament to the skill involved in crafting a narrative U-turn in the midst of such chaos that these twists were still so shocking. So, with a major spoiler warning in place, I'm Ewan, this is Whatculture, and here are war movie plot twists that nobody saw coming. Irina's fate, Stalingrad. Perhaps the quintessential anti-war film, 1993 Stalingrad is unashamedly desolating. Following a platoon of German soldiers on the Eastern Front, Joseph Wismeyer's picture captures the notion of war as hell in unflinching clarity. It's an exemplary movie, but an emotionally exhausting experience. And true to form, Stalingrad saves its most unexpectedly devastating gut punch for last. The soldiers form a tentative bond with a woman called Irina, who is a soldier in the Red Army across the course of the film. Stalingrad's conclusion sees the disillusioned group silently trudging through the snow, attempting to escape their hellish environs. They are finally alerted to a sign of human life as a Red Army flare illuminates the winter sky. All initially appears to be well as Irina rushes towards the signal, shouting to her people in her mother tongue. That is, of course, until the young woman is gunned down and instantly killed by a volley of Soviet gunfire. There isn't even time to blink in shock. The ending. The Wall, 2017. War thriller The Wall may have divided critical opinion on the film's release in 2017, but Doug Liman's picture features one of the more deviously nasty twist endings in recent memory. Set during the final stages of the Iraq War, the film centers on an American sniper and his spotter, played by John Cena and Aaron Taylor Johnson respectively. The pair soon find themselves lured into a deadly game of cat and mouse with an Iraqi marksman. Pinned down and unable to move, the duo's only source of cover from the sniper's aim takes the form of the film's crumbling eponymous wall. Cena's staff sergeant duly bites the dust at the enemy combatant's hands, but the movie's conclusion sees his spotter apparently triumph over their tormentor. Taylor Johnson's Sergeant Isaac seemingly guns down the sniper with his final round after a prolonged shooting match between the pair. He then tests the waters by standing up in plain view of his assailant. The shot, though, never comes, indicating that Isaac has indeed dispatched his foe. Of course, that's before Liman whips the rug from right underneath us with the revelation that the sharpshooter is simply lying in wait for more targets. As backup arrives, the enemy sniper pounces and disposes of Isaac and his rescuers in one fell swoop, using his rifle to down the escape helicopter and concluding the film with the wickedest of gut punches. Meet Private Ryan, Saving Private Ryan. Steven Spielberg's epic World War II offering Saving Private Ryan follows a group of soldiers on a mission to locate the eponymous private and bring him home safely after his three brothers are killed in combat. Spielberg's picture is bookended by scenes featuring an old man attending a World War II cemetery in France with his family. The film's beginning immediately segues into the first scene set during the war, depicting the hellish arrival of Tom Hanks' Captain Miller and company on Omaha Beach. Accordingly, the initial assumption is that the old man is an elderly version of Miller himself. A supposition reinforced by his resemblance to Hanks. But in a narrative bombshell as heartrending as it is uplifting, the veteran is later revealed to be none other than Ryan himself, with his facial features in the aftermath of the movie's climactic engagement morphing into that of his older self. Ryan is in fact visiting the grave of his fallen comrade, the aforementioned Miller, who died in battle attempting to carry out his mission. Smith, Schaefer, and Turner's true identities are revealed. Where Eagles Dare. Based on an original screenplay from legendary novelist Alistair MacLean, 1968's Where Eagles Dare is renowned as one of the pulpiest, most fun war films ever conceived. Led by Richard Burton and Clint Eastwood as Major John Smith and Lieutenant Morris Schaefer respectively, and man, what a duo they are, Brian G. Hutton's picture is as renowned for its immortal twist ending as it is for its exemplary overall quality. Where Eagles Dare is initially touted as a joint British-American operation to rescue a US general from a remote castle in the German Alps. As the movie progresses, the rescue mission is unmasked as a ruse. The operation is actually an ingenious cover story to mask the real goal of obtaining vital enemy intelligence. After making a thrilling escape, part of which involves that amazing sequence on the cable cars, Smith reveals the movie's final mind-blowing bombshell as he is debriefed by Patrick Wymark's Colonel Turner aboard a transport plane. Burton's soldier reveals that he and Schaefer actually joined the mission on behalf of MI6 to root out the top German undercover agents operating in Britain. An individual at the intelligence gathered on the mission revealed to be none other than Turner himself. Unsurprisingly, the duplicitous colonel wisely elects to avoid a trial by jumping out of the aircraft to his death. The shock factor of this twist was clearly too much for him to handle. John Wayne actually dies, sans of Iwo Jima. Across a diverse range of genres and roles, John Wayne's party trick was usually to ride off into the sunset after saving the day. The Duke garnered such a reputation for doing precisely that in one form or another that it usually came as a legitimate shock whenever one of Wayne's characters actually bit the dust on screen. There is perhaps no better example of this than 1949's Sands of Iwo Jima. Alan Dwan's Offering is one of the most lauded war films of the time, starring Wayne in the leading role of Sergeant John Stryker. One of Wayne's most iconic characters, Stryker is a hard-as-nails disciplinarian. He's initially despised by his men, but the members of his squad soon come to appreciate his methods amidst the heat of battle. And even if Wayne's cinematic charges had made dying more of a habit, Stryker's formidable aura of toughness means that it still comes as an almighty surprise when he is shown to be just as mortal as anyone else. As the squad enjoy a brief lull in the fighting, John is suddenly shot and killed by a Japanese soldier in a twist for the ages. The fact that it's the seemingly indestructible John Wayne is just the icing on the cake. Gibson is unveiled as a Frenchman, Dunkirk. The chaotic backdrop provided by Christopher Nolan's 2017 take on the Dunkirk evacuation provided the perfect camouflage for one of the director's most cunning narrative curveballs. Nolan has built himself a reputation as a master of the twist, and the legendary filmmaker does not disappoint here. One of his key characters this time around is the subject of the director's latest mind-bending efforts, Anurin Bernard's initially unassuming Gibson. Fionn Whitehead's Tommy first encounters Gibson burying a dead body, but the curious nature of this visual is lost amidst the turmoil of their surroundings. A dead soldier in this fraught environment is hardly the most surprising sight in the world. However, Gibson's relentless silence becomes increasingly suspicious, prompting Harry Styles' Alex to accuse him of being a German spy and precipitating the movie's most shocking development. Gibson is revealed to be French, and a soldier who attempted to adopt the identity of a British trooper, the man he was seen burying earlier, in a ploy to escape Dunkirk before the German vanguard broke through. However, Nolan wasn't quite done there. Gibson also meets a shocking demise almost immediately after being unmasked. Attempting to escape the sinking boat that his group were hiding in, the unfortunate young man drowns after becoming tangled in a chain. Steiner's demise and Churchill's body double, The Eagle Has Landed. Based on Jack Higgins' novel of the same name, the World War II thriller The Eagle Has Landed depicts a fictional German plot to kidnap Winston Churchill at the height of the conflict. The 1976 film stars Michael Caine in the leading role of the brooding and highly decorated Colonel Kurt Steiner, the man charged with carrying out this daring plot. The operation appears doomed to fail from the get-go, with high-ranking German officials realistically viewing the endeavor as little more than a meaningless exercise to placate their demented leader's whims. As such, the fact that the mission actually appears to succeed constitutes an almighty twist in itself, with Steiner apparently managing to successfully assassinate the British Prime Minister before being gunned down himself. Remarkably, the shocking nature of the proceedings doesn't let up one bit from there. The dead Churchill is soon revealed to have been an unnervingly similar-looking body double. The real man is safe and sound and on his way to the Tehran conference. The alternate timeline, Inglourious Basterds. The initial goings in the chaotic universe depicted by Quentin Tarantino's Inglourious Basterds indicated that the director was always willing to play it somewhat fast and loose with World War II's actual history. However, the extent to which Tarantino was willing to venture away from the realms of reality wasn't fully established until the confirmation that this film depicted an alternate and decidedly embellished historical timeline. And how does he confirm this? By having the bastards massacre the entirety of Nazi high command as they attend the premiere of the propaganda film Nation's Pride. The delightful visual of Adolf Hitler's face being torn to shreds by a hail of MP40 fire even comes around as the result of a slick twist within a twist. Christoph Waltz's Hans Landa merrily sells out his superiors to save his own skin in light of the Axis' impending defeat, despite his reputation as a fanatically loyal and ruthless Nazi. Blake's death, 1917. If you had to pick a main character between the pair of George McKay's Will Schofield and Dean Charles Chapman's Tom Blake in the early goings of 1917, it's fair to say that the latter seems the more likely of the two. Not only was Blake the more outwardly personable of the two soldiers, but he also possessed an emotional connection to the film's central mission. He and Schofield are charged with carrying a message calling off a scheduled attack that would jeopardize the lives of nearly 2,000 men, among them Blake's elder brother, Joseph. But in a truly devastating development, Blake is mortally wounded by a German pilot after he and Will pull him from the wreckage of his own burning plane. McKay's private dispatches the wounded aviator, but by then, it's too late. Tom bleeds out soon after, eliciting heartbreaking promises from Schofield that he will write to his mother and complete the mission. Bryony's revelation. Atonement. Based on the Ian McEwan novel of the same name, Joe Wright's Atonement received a tidal wave of positive critical reception back when it released in 2007. The film chronicles a purported crime and its devastating consequences over the course of nearly 60 years, set against the backdrop of World War II. This evocative meditation on remorse and loss centers on Saoirse Ronan's Bryony, who mistakenly accuses her older sister Cecilia's boyfriend Robbie, played by Keira Knightley and James McAvoy respectively, of sexual assault. The innocent Robbie is incarcerated until he is eventually released to fight when the war breaks out. Atonement's twist isn't so much a twist as it is an emotional train wreck. Robbie eventually makes it home via the beaches of Dunkirk to be reunited with Cecilia, eventually culminating in a tearful apology to the pair from Bryony for her harrowing mistake. All's well that ends well, right? Well, wrong. This happy ending is revealed to be a complete fabrication of the guilt-stricken Bryony's mind, adapted into the chapters of an autobiographical novel to atone for her seismic levels of regret. In reality, Robbie died from an infected wound while waiting to be evacuated, and Cecilia met her own demise soon after in the Balham tube station bombing. The mine turns out to be a tin can mine. Led by Armie Hammer before his big fall from grace, Mine is a rare blend of genres. A war movie featuring the usual trappings of a psychological thriller. The 2016 outing sees the actor take on the role of US Marine Mike Stevens, a sniper who encounters an unthinkably nightmarish situation following a mission gone wrong. Stevens becomes trapped after stepping on a mine during his exfiltration. One wrong move and the device will blow him to Kingdom Come. An unfortunate prospect when stranded in the middle of nowhere and being hounded by lots of insurgents. Haunted by visions of his terminally ill mother and girlfriend Jenny, Hammer's soldier must endure the physical and psychological torment of this unenviable state of affairs until help arrives. After a gunfight with his pursuers leaves his rescue flare out of reach, the Marine is left with no choice but to finally step off the mine. This development leads to the film gleefully unveiling its closing twist. There is no explosion, no screams, no mess of broken, twisted limbs. The perplexed Stephen digs through the sand to uncover the quote-unquote explosive, only to discover that his captor was actually a small tin can with a toy soldier inside it all along. Whoops. Nobody survives. All quiet on the Western Front. While many viewers may have gotten their first taste of All Quiet on the Western Front through Netflix's 2022 remake, the 1930 iteration provided the original plot twist that nobody saw coming. It's also a way better movie, if you ask me, as it actually gets the whole war fever of the source material instead of just reiterating Saving Private Ryan-esque shock value, but that's by the by. There isn't a single shocking narrative development that stands above the rest within the context of Lewis Mileston's picture. Rather, it's the fact that not one single member of the film's core group of protagonists makes it to the end of proceedings. Introduced to the audience as bright-eyed young men filled with the unshakable optimism of youth and classic jingoism, each main character's death constitutes an emotionally devastating sequence, reaffirming the devastating reality associated with armed conflict. Even the film's focal character, Paul Balmer, is not exempt from this harrowingly true-to-life status quo. Following the demise of his mentor Kat, a smiling Paul is suddenly shot and killed by a sniper as he reaches for a butterfly, a poignant symbol of transformation and hope in the film's final sequence. Hook's redemption, Zulu. Helm's Deep ain't got nothing on these chaps. Chronicling the miraculous defense of Rorke's Drift during the Anglo-Zulu War, 1964 Zulu is an iconic war outing, starring Michael Caine in one of his earliest roles. Based on a remarkable true story, Cy Enfield's film depicts a struggle against seemingly impossible odds. The tale of how 150 British soldiers held off a force of more than 4,000 Zulu warriors. Granted, one side had lots of Martini Henry rifles and the other had spears and shields, but still, those odds aren't exactly what I'd call tasty. And to lend some context to this feat of extraordinary account, 11 men received the Victoria Cross for their exploits in the battle, the most ever awarded for a single action to this day. Among these individuals was one Private Henry Hook, introduced to viewers as a serial malingerer confined to Rorke's Drift's hospital after consistently feigning illness. Described as, quote, a thief, a coward, and an insubordinate barrack room lawyer by his superiors, James Booth's Hook hardly seems the type to throw himself into any undue heroics if there's nothing in it for him. This was actually a really controversial element of the film. The real-life Hook was a model soldier, and there were stories of his relatives walking out of Zulu when they realized how his heroics had been translated to the big screen. Either way, the unmasking of his true character in the film comes as a shocking plot twist in the bloody chaos of the battle that soon ensues. After the Zulus set the hospital on fire, Hook gallantly rallies the patients to repel their attackers. This unlikely hero even manages to get several stricken patients to safety, hacking a hole in the wall to allow them to escape as the hospital collapses in flames. Guess you don't judge a Hook by its cover. It's the only bad pun you're gonna get in this list, I promise. Menelaus bites the dust, Troy. Wolfgang Petersen's 2004 epic historical war offering Troy is loosely based upon Homer's Iliad, with King Menelaus one of the most important characters in the Trojan War's overarching narrative. Husband to the infamous Helen of Troy, Menelaus beseeches the Greek kings to wage war against the Trojans after his wife is stolen away by the young Prince Paris. However, the king of Sparta ultimately gets the last laugh. He's one of the Greeks who eventually stows away in the Trojan horse, victoriously sailing home with his duplicitous wife in tow after the city is sacked. As such, Menelaus' story arc in Petersen's take on events constitutes an almighty plot twist. In Homer's canon, Menelaus challenges Paris to a duel for Helen's return and defeats the prince with ease. Troy mirrors this version of events, but implements a deviation from its source material. The Iliad recounts that Paris was spirited away from the battlefield by the goddess Aphrodite, saving him from death at Menelaus' hands. Unfortunately, there's no such godly intervention to be found in Petersen's film. Paris' brother Hector shockingly slays Menelaus before he can deal the killing blow, doing away with one of Homer's more prominent characters before the film even reaches its halfway point. The Captain's Double Cross, Master and Commander, The Far Side of the World. Hell yeah, now we're talking. Peter Weir's 2003 banger Master and Commander was universally acclaimed for the masterful manner in which the Australian adapted Patrick O'Brien's novels for the silver screen. Helmed by the towering presence of Russell Crowe as Captain Jack Aubrey, Weir's picture is outrageously entertaining, gorgeously shot and performed by the crew and cast. It also has an unexpected plot twist right at the end. The climactic battle between Aubrey's surprise and the French frigate Acheron seemingly sees the enemy captain killed in the fighting. After the French surrender, Jack is gifted his fallen counterpart's sword by the Acheron's doctor, a man named Lavigny. Except all is not as it seems. As the Acheron sails away, poor Bettany Stephen Maturin reveals that Lavigny actually died several months prior, unmasking the quote-unquote doctor as the real French captain. An irritated Aubrey realizes that he has been duped, immediately giving the order to pursue the French ship and for the crew to assume battle stations as the film concludes. Limbani fails to make it home. The Wild Geese. Helmed by an impressively honking ensemble cast, including Roger Moore and Richard Harris, 1978's The Wild Geese follows a group of mercenaries as they attempt to free Jules Limbani, the deposed president of an unnamed African country, before his execution. While the film's ragtag group of soldiers succeeds in liberating Limbani, they are betrayed by their benefactors in short order. As such, Andrew V. McLachlan's picture saves its devastating coup de grace for the final sequences. A desperate race against time ensues as our protagonists attempt to get an escape plane operational, all while a bloody gunfight breaks out against Limbani's pursuers in the background. In total, only 13 of the original force of 50 men actually make it aboard their plane. In a sickening development too, Limbani is revealed to have caught a bullet during the group's frenzied escape. The stricken president dies soon after the plane touches down in Rhodesia, rendering the entire operation a complete failure and a catastrophic loss of human life. An SS soldier doesn't give Norman's position away. Fury. Following an American tank crew in the final months of World War II, David Ayer's Fury is unflinching in its depiction of war as hell. The 2014 offering is unashamedly nihilistic, a theme that extends from Fury's narrative to its visuals. Soldiers from both sides are reduced to bloody shreds, torn limb from limb by machine gun fire, or mushed into the blood-soaked mud in horrifically graphic fashion from start to finish. Ultimately, even the film's core group of characters, the crew of the titular M4 Sherman, aren't safe from that president either. Brad Pitt and company are all duly and bloodily dispatched after the crippled tank is swarmed by an SS battalion. Logan Lerman's Norman Ellison is the only man left standing, or more accurately, left cowering in the mud beneath the vehicle in a desperate attempt to avoid a similar fate. What follows next highlights Ayer's dedication to constructing an atmosphere of merciless hopelessness, underlined by the fact that a simple piece of human goodness constitutes a jarring plot twist in this film. Norman appears to be as good as toast when he is discovered by a Waffen SS soldier peering under the tank, only for the young German to inexplicably spare him by moving on without alerting his comrades. Danilov sacrifices himself. Enemy at the Gates. Set at the height of the Battle of Stalingrad, 2001's Enemy at the Gates offers a highly dramatized account of the legendary game of cat and mouse between Soviet sniper Vasily Zaitsev and his Wehrmacht counterpart, Erwin Koenig. Played by Jude Law, Zaitsev's closest friend and confidant is Joseph Fiennes' Commissar Danilov, a relationship that eventually sours over the pair's competing affections for Rachel Weisz's Tanya Chernova. Casting his friendship with Vasily aside over Zaitsev's perceived betrayal, the Commissar even disparages Law's sniper in a letter to his superiors. By the time the film's closing act rolls around, Danilov's character arc from wingman to grade A weasel seems pretty locked in, until Tanya is seemingly killed on her way to the evacuation boats. Danilov's slide into villainous territory is abruptly halted, with the political officer subsequently consumed with guilt over his jealousy of Vasily. With all that being said, few viewers were likely prepared for just how far Fiennes' character was willing to go to redeem himself. In a heartbreaking turn of events, Danilov deliberately exposes himself to Koenig after making his final apologies, tricking the German into shooting him and revealing his position to Vasily so he can finish the job. Maritza is unveiled as a partisan, Force 10 from Navarone. Featuring Harrison Ford and loosely based upon Alistair MacLean's novel of the same name, Force 10 from Navarone is an unlikely sequel that also contains a delightful assortment of plot twists. While the double-crossing nature of one Captain Leskovar constitutes the movie's most obvious example, the reveal that new viewers never really see coming actually occurs amid the movie's first act. The film's core group of saboteurs and commandos is captured by Germans after parachuting into occupied Yugoslavia, an outfit led by the despicable Major Schroeder and his concubine Maritza, played by none other than iconic Bond girl Barbara Bach. On the surface, Maritza appears to be an implacable extension of her Nazi beau, a merciless collaborationist itching to do away with her newly acquired prisoners. However, appearances can be deceiving. After Ford's Colonel Barnsby and Robert Shaw's Major Mallory construct a ruse concerning a fictitious stash of buried penicillin to stall the Germans, Maritza and a group of Schroeder's Nazi cronies escort the soldiers to where the quote-unquote revolutionary medicine is supposedly located. As the pair attempt to lure their captors closer to outpower them, the Germans are suddenly cut down by a hail of machine gun fire. The smoke clears to reveal the shooter as none other than Maritza, unveiling Bach's character as a Yugoslav partisan. This thing being so surprising speaks volumes to the quality of Bach's performance. The American's turn as a baddie is so convincing that her unmasking as an ally is a complete surprise. The U-boat's demise, Das Boot. Few plot twists exemplify the hopeless nature of war better than the devastating conclusion to Wolfgang Petersen's Das Boot. Brilliantly capturing the individualistic aspects of a submarine crew at the height of World War II, the iconic 1981 offering follows U-96, a German submarine mired in the thick of the Battle of the Atlantic. The crew undergo a litany of traumatic flashpoints across the course of the film, from being bombarded with depth charges to narrowly avoiding implosion after the submarine sinks to its rated limit. As such, the desolating turn of events that awaits the film's protagonist upon returning to the supposed safety of La Rochelle comes as a shock to even the most pessimistic of viewers. The U-boat's luck finally runs out in harrowing fashion after U-96 is sunk by Allied fighter planes, a jaw-dropping surprise attack that sees the U-boat's captain and the majority of the crew killed or wounded. It's a hugely massive gut punch after watching the crew for 149 minutes. And really, there are many fine movies concerning submarines, but few that will ever surpass Petersen's inimitable outing.